Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED. Saturday, October the 7th is our date. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys here at KMED. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KMED to talk about all sorts of real estate-related issues and topics, investment opportunities, you name it. We've talked about it at some point, it seems like. There are over 400 shows now here in KMED, and we're still here, on these Saturdays. And I don't know what we do without Saturday morning anymore, huh? 11 o'clock. It's something, isn't it?
That's some pretty good information. And our guests today have got some great growth and success to talk about since they were here a year ago.
Well, we've talked, one of the things that so many people we know are investors or people wanting to invest properties. Geez, the people have talked to us. Many of our listeners have properties, have rental properties, have investment properties, have done exchanges. We've talked about 1031 exchanges. These are some good opportunities, by the way, too, just in exchanges. Anyways, but today, specifically about travelers' accommodations, and we talk about them a lot throughout the region. I mean, we really do. And so we're going to hear kind of about an update. Daniel Perry is the owner of bookairhop.com and was with us about a year ago, along with Jeffrey Nagel from John L. Scott. We learned a great deal back then about the travelers' accommodation market. And first of all, Daniel, nice to have you back here.
Great. Thanks so much. Happy to be back.
It really is. And Jeffrey, good with you too, huh?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us back.
It's really interesting about this particular topic, vacation rentals. Daniel, when you were here a year ago, I remember you saying it was going to, and these words stuck with me, that the vacation rental industry here, as it was growing and you saw the potential, what it was doing, that it was going to change a lot of the real estate market. That's really happening, isn't it?
It's really happening, and it's moved for us quite a bit faster than we anticipated.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, but we had a game plan, and we've achieved our 3-year game plan in the first year.
Wow.
And so that's pretty a fair amount of tremendous growth during that period of time.
Yeah. Wow, there really is. Now, the one thing I got to say that there's a number of people. There's a number of websites out there I've learned, that do book travelers accommodations. But what makes Daniel special and why we want Dan Jeffrey here is that they are the knowledgeable of Southern Oregon. Yeah. You got right. You guys. I mean, you were the kind of the guy who started it here and are the one who's overseeing its growth right now.
We did start it in this area, and you're correct. It's a very unique area that we live in, and having a staff that understands the area makes that guest experience that much better. And from the client side, people looking to invest, we know where the hot spots are. We know where guests need to be, and it makes a big difference. And sometimes blocks can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. And Jeffrey Nagel, you and I talk about when we talk about these types of things, how it really is changing the real estate market, and you see it every day because I know you guys work together a lot of times, and you've done some properties. You're seeing that same thing, right?
Absolutely. What's happening is there's now an extra category in some regards of available real estate. So you'll take homes or buildings that in the past might have simply been sort of single-family homes. All of a sudden, because of zoning, they're being marketed differently. They have different clients they appeal to. So it's really changed the market.
Yeah, it's changing the market in other ways too. Besides that, right? I mean, it's jobs. It's changing the way B&Bs are. I mean, it seems to me that it's changing everything in the travelers' accommodation in this entire Rogue Valley is different.
Pete, there's a huge ripple effect, and we have to understand that. We're not throwing a little pebble into a big pond. We're throwing a big rock into a small pond. The travelers' accommodations have a significant effect on the economy of our local region, and it is absolutely driving the economy, and it is absolutely bringing money into the valley. It's making a huge positive impact in our area.
Yeah. To Jeffrey's point, we are more and more a tourist-based economy, and our amenities, besides just the entertainment and all that, the outdoors and all of the whole package, really attractive. Up until about a year ago, what did we talk about? Rental properties, bed and breakfasts, and motel rooms were really the three options. What a game changer this has been in a short period of time.
Well, if I can toot Daniel's horn, one of the things that he's done, Daniel's not just providing a room for people to sleep in, because that's basically a hotel. What Daniel is doing is Daniel is providing a complete package. So when people show up, it's not just, there's a room I can stay in, but he's also linking them up with outdoor activities, with shows, with restaurants. And so he's creating this whole immersive package for people coming in from out of the area, which makes it much more interesting. Instead of, let's go to Ashland, what is there to do there? I don't really know.
Let me
they
get on the
say-
internet.
Look at the internet. And when they go to bookairhop.com and they start realizing all these amazing things they can do, Daniel's created a whole package that makes it super easy for someone to book an exciting 3 or 4 day event with lots of stuff going on.
That's exactly the way I would say it. And one of the things and one of our keywords that we've really been using this year is the word experience. Guests are looking for experiences. If they want to stay at as you said, a generic room, they would. But what they want to do is they want to stay with a local hops farmer. They want to stay with a local vineyard. They want to stay with a local artist or a local photographer. So they're now seeing experiences listed on our site where they can stay with somebody that does that as a living or as a passion. And they say, my husband loves beer, and so let's stay at a hops yard. And wait a minute, you have miniature animals? Well, our kids love miniature animals. So let's just make this a whole experience for everybody. And a property that in the past, if they would to have tried to market themselves, one, they wouldn't be quite sure how to get themselves out there.
Right.
And two, who's going to stay at our place? So by marketing them in a way that we actually draw that particular type of client, we don't marginalize that property. Instead, we push it for what its best interest is to that particular community. And it's taken properties that I wasn't 100% sure would do all that well. And they've done so incredibly well that you start looking for more of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an emerging model. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How big is the vacation rental business in Southern Oregon, do you think? I mean, tell us what you think about this. I mean, is it hundreds and hundreds? Is it thousands? Or tell me what's out there?
Again, it's continually growing. You can run that through just about anybody, at every city office or chamber, and they'll tell you, how much this particular demographic of Southern Oregon is growing every year. We can see it specifically from sites. We exist on 96 different websites across the world, and we can monitor that booking every day through our analytics, and we can see where the growing and emerging markets are. We talked about this a little bit last time, but the European markets and specifically the Asian markets are huge. Our first year in business, it was about 6% for the Asian market visiting this area. This year it's about 12%. It's expected to be 20% by next year. Many tourists from other countries have seen Disneyland and they've been to some of the state parks, but now they want experiences.
So to be clear, these are people who would not have otherwise come to our valley.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is new money coming
Building
into
new
the valley.
bridges.
This is
to
new,
those people.
bringing in economic stimulation or whatever
Exactly.
into the,
And another way to think about it is every dollar they spend with Daniel at AirHop, they're going to spend another $4 or $5 in the community.
Well, and that's the way it goes. So the demand is there. You're looking for, in terms of your advice to people for specific properties. You started about that, vintners, certain places, experiences, ranches, cannabis farms. I bet would be another one that you could probably book it in the future around this valley.
Always thinking, aren't you?
I'm trying
forward.
Entrepreneurship here. But what specific types of properties, Daniel, make good vacation rentals? Because I know people think, mine's gonna make a great one, but not necessarily it will.
It's figuring out where that driver is, what the driver is of that particular property and what guests that's going to pull in, and do our websites attract that particular type of guest? Again, another emerging market in this area is in the medical community. We have one of the largest medical campuses through Asante and Providence, anywhere outside of Portland. And we first started taking on some houses on the west side of Medford, and I wasn't sure how that was going to play out. Who's my vacation person that's going to be staying in these
West
properties?
Medford, okay.
It wasn't a vacation person. They were traveling nurses, traveling doctors, people coming in and out, families of people that are in hospitals that don't necessarily want to stay in hotel rooms for weeks or months at a time and would prefer having a house. And started working with a local investor who purchased homes on the west side, converted those homes, and they filled right up.
And they filled right up. Not necessarily. You see, it doesn't have. Traveler is
Got another driver.
The word traveler is a lot of different things, isn't it? Not necessarily.
Not just
a tourist.
your tourist.
It really is a broad range that we don't even think about.
Should you talk to Daniel about studying these analytics? That's what you're supposed to do for Table Rock Sports, isn't it?
Well, Daniel's much better at it.
He knows his stuff. No, that's essential to growing and to keeping your business in front of the growth. And
we've really been trying
and the
to focus
opportunity.
on what the proper outsourcing is over this last year. And one of the things we did was started to work with a company based out of Bend, Oregon. We wanted to try and keep it as local as possible. And they are a software company, and they are SEO specialists in Google Analytics. So they do the studying for us and provide those with those results. I can break it down into any portion. It can be an hourly basis, a daily basis, weekly, annually, and it lets us know where everything's coming from.
I take it back.
Well, yeah,
Because
where
it
we
takes
push.
it takes a firm that,
oh,
that
yeah.
specializes in that
It-
to crunch
it-
numbers.
it really
like that.
does.
I was
Yeah.
going to in our next segment, I want Daniel to explain how it works.
Yeah,
I think some of
yeah.
the things that people need to know,
And how
we're
you-
not quite there along the way.
How,
but
how you grow your
getting
business
there.
with that information.
Yeah.
And that
So
data.
let's go back to location now. I mean, you obviously manage a number of these places. Is there particular places that are oversaturated? Maybe where are most of them at? Where do you think you need some of the future ones are coming from?
For our
Just,
investors
curious.
who you've piqued their interest.
Yeah.
out
You
there.
know, I wouldn't say oversaturated, but we had that big surprise last year that Jeffrey and I were working on a property that Jeffrey brought to me that was up at Hyatt Lake.
the Hyatt Lake cabins.
yeah.
Everyone's seen them up there. Okay.
Little cabin sitting up there waiting for somebody to rent it.
You
waiting-
started with one, right?
We started with one.
Okay.
What are you at now, Daniel?
We have 14.
Wow.
14.
So that's grown well. And again, it was word of mouth because word of mouth travels on that mountain.
You bet.
And people have properties that have been locked up sometimes for years because they just don't use them as often as
Yeah.
they did.
There was networking up there before there was internet networking up there.
Absolutely.
So all 14 are vacation rentals.
They are.
And you manage those, and do the
Actually,
are they?
I bought one.
You bought one too. Well, put your money where your mouth is, buddy. That's good. What kind of occupancy do you have on these?
We were close to 100% occupancy during the summer.
During the summer.
Pretty incredible. And we're already sold out for the holidays.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because there's a winter draw. There's a market for that winter experience.
and it's this amazing combination that we didn't know existed, or I didn't know existed. And one of the biggest vacationers that we have are people that are local. Maybe you can't afford
local
to
folks.
own a cabin, but you can afford to stay there 3 or 4 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And we have people that now, would stay, once a year, once every other year, staying 3 or 4 times a year. We put different packages together so that they're able to accomplish that.
Local
And-
folks.
need one
Well,
of those.
wait, how many times you want to go up to Lake of the Woods? You stay at a friend's house or something like
Right.
that. It's the same thing,
Same
isn't
thing.
it?
And
Yeah.
they take
Pretty good.
ownership of a particular cabin. They fall in love with a particular cabin. It becomes their
Right,
cabin.
right.
They
I
know
can
where
see that.
everything's at.
Yep.
They know what the views are going to be. And their kids get to come back and stay at that same place over and over again.
That's
So they
really
get to build
special,
those
yeah.
family memories.
All right, where else are
Without
they
having to own
needed?
it and all of the other things that go with that, it's just that you just get the experience. Is what you're
Absolutely. You
talking
get
about.
an entire weekend at the lake for a few $100s. That's a pretty amazing
Yeah.
thing.
Okay, where else besides? I mean, lakes are nice. Lakes are good draws. What else are out there that where you've got some of these vacation rentals?
What about
at?
along the river, Daniel?
Yeah, so that's been another growth area. Our properties that are along the river. People come here and visit. Maybe they go out on a jet boat excursion and they pass all these homes along the way. Well, so do I. And but I also notice that some of those homes are empty.
Yes, absolutely.
So you literally start knocking on doors sometimes, finding out, I see that property. It looks like nothing's happened with it for a while. Let's track it down, figure out who owns that property, and give them a call. And the interesting thing is, again, sort of like the cabins up at Hyatt Lake, once we started working with 1 or 2 people, they talked to neighbors or they talked to people that were friends. And, the guy next to me's owned his property for 30 years. They live in Arizona half the year. The house just sits. Could we do something else with this property?
Hey, where else are some at? Anything up in? I'm trying to think. I'm sure Ashland has tons of them, but you've got restrictions where they can and cannot be there, right?
That's correct. And
Okay.
anything we do in Ashland or any city that has restrictions, Brookings would be another city that has restrictions, is to move everything through the city and make sure that the potential client we're working with has all their ducks in order before we start playing.
I think that's a
Jeffrey?
really good point. Is that Daniel has really brought this super high level of ethics to the business to just really ensure that all the properties that he works with are in full legal compliance with zoning laws and regulations, with taxing. Because if you play by all the rules, everybody wins.
Right. And, I mean, the city wins. I mean, whatever they get tax revenue from them, et cetera. Correct. So everyone does do that, and they should pay the tax. I mean, I agree that if you're going to have a traveler's accommodation, that's okay.
And Daniel told me they don't advertise. It's word of mouth, and that's there's no better testament to a good opportunity, or something that is good for people. It's a win-win situation as to neighbors telling neighbors and engaging them in the opportunity.
And we've watched those areas
person to
grow.
person. Yeah.
Our very first property
Yeah.
was on Butler Creek in Ashland, and we now have 4 properties on Butler Creek.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
literally attached neighbors.
Yeah.
Do you physically come and look at a property if someone
Great
says
story.
I want to have a potential of a traveler's accommodation here? Do you come and look at it and go through them? I mean, they have to meet a certain standard for you, or tell me what that
They do. So
you know.
our company has a particular standard, but everything always starts with a phone call. So we have that initial phone call, actually on the phone with a client, anywhere from 15 minutes to about 45 minutes. We send out a portfolio package, and it allows them to review what our services are, what we do, and also what we don't do. The next step after that is a phone call back to us and a follow up to set up a preview of the property. And not every property works. There are
Right.
different reasons why a property will work and won't work, and then also what that property is able to achieve. And really, that's what we're trying to do. I'm a licensed designer, and we'll take a look at a property, and often a property in its current state may
need some help.
it may be okay for $100 a night or $125 a night, but a $3,000 investment.
All right, Dan, you got to hold that off there for a second. Keep those thoughts coming away. We've got a break coming up here. We're talking with Daniel Perry from bookairhop.com and Jeffrey Nagel from John L. Scott, Pete and Joe, the real estate guys. We're going to continue here more about travelers' accommodations. The Real Estate Show rolls on KMED. October the 7th is our date. Pete and Joe, the real estate guys, here in the house with you at KMED. Hope your weekend's going to be a terrific one. Go out and enjoy it. Do something, right? You don't want to just sit around. It's too beautiful outside, I think.
I'm going to clean and remodel my garage
Oh, good.
really quickly for a little extra space for folks to come visit.
Yeah, well, that's probably pretty good. Anyway, today we were talking travelers' accommodation, something that is a growing part of the real estate market, potential investments. And one of the things with Daniel Perry, who's the owner of bookairhop.com, and Jeffrey Nagel from John L. Scott, one of the things is there's a ton of second homes. I mean, all over Southern Oregon. I mean, Josephine County, Jackson County, I mean, there's great places in Klamath County. I mean, they're all over. Those are really prime, Jeffrey, those are prime properties, aren't they, for vacation rentals?
If the zoning is correct, they absolutely are.
I mean, if I live outside of town, I mean, I would assume the zoning would be, I could do what I want, right? More or less, but I should never say more or less do what you want. That probably is not true. But anyway, there's tons and tons, I would assume, all over the region of empty homes, right?
So here's the interesting thing: if you're in a position of owning two homes, which is a great position, we'd all love to be in that position. If that second home is sitting empty, let's say the second home is worth $200,000, right? Pete, if you had $200,000, would you stick it under your mattress and ignore it for a year, or would you try to make a little money off that $200,000?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things we talk to people about in our show is that if you have property, you certainly have if you have the ability to earn some income from it, that's an option for you. So to me, answer your question would be yes, but there's tons of these properties out there, and I hear Daniel say that they're really available. If these are great targets because they're just sitting empty.
Underutilized.
Okay,
Yeah.
but as an owner, then How do you deal with that type of situation? Say, I want to use it a few times a year or whatever. How do you deal with that kind of thing as you talk to them about kind of managing their property for them here, or what you do, I should say, on the rental?
You bet. So we have a tech person that's on our team, and what he does with every owner is he sets up a read-only Google Calendar for them. They have that calendar on their phone or their laptop or whatever device they want it set up on, and that allows them to monitor all the stays that are coming in. So it lets them know the guest name, how many guests are staying, and what those dates are. It also gives them the ability with that to know where they can block a date. Mm-hmm. So if they're coming in with family, or maybe they have family that's coming through, not themselves, but somebody else coming through, they can block those dates for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's part of our deal, is that they're able to do that. We also have people that we work with that don't live here full time. They snowbird. And so their house becomes available.
And more coming. Every day. I mean, more coming every day.
Their house becomes available, 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we have that 6-month window. We handle bookings during that period of time. And we had a great example in Ashland this year of a custom built home. The family is from Switzerland. They live in Ashland half the year, and they live in Switzerland the other half of the year. Okay. In the last 7 years, that house has been empty while they're gone for those 6 months. This year, they allowed us to use the house. And it worked out to be about $6,000 a month while they were gone. Mm-hmm. So 6 times 6, 36,000 gross for a property that previously sat empty.
Yeah, that's.
I can do that math. That's good.
Yeah. Those are the things. Those are
really
the potentials that are out there, right?
Yep.
I mean, that it's that type of thing that's out there. and I would assume that they're everywhere and more of them. So does it matter
long as the
season
zoning's
wise?
correct.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah, as long as the
so
zoning's correct.
yeah,
The other, I would
right.
say, if there's a fear factor in that sometimes with people, is they think about their personal furnishings and the things that are in those houses, and there's concern of that. One of the topics that we always discuss with new clients is how we layer that. So we layer that with one, of course, they have their homeowner's insurance. There's also traveler accommodation insurance that's purchased by the client. It's relatively inexpensive, and then our company carries $1 million rider on top of that. So we have these 3 different layers to help cover, and also a pretty detailed way of gathering our guests. So we know the guests that we are bringing in are a good, strong quality guests. They're paying for everything up front, any fees, service fees, things like that. And so by the time they arrive, we have a good feeling for who that guest is. We've usually talked to them through one form of communication or another at least 5 times before they arrive.
So continue on with the service that you provide for the fee that you charge to manage one. You don't manage the property itself, but you manage the booking part. So tell us what you do there.
And thanks for mentioning that, because there is sometimes confusion and people say, oh, we've never worked with a property manager like you before. We're not a property management company.
Because we asked that question, by the way, last week to Hillary Rufai about managing vacation rentals, and it was an interesting answer. It's very different managing that property versus a rental in there. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Technically, we really function as a software company. So what we do is we provide a calendar to a guest or to a client, and that calendar manages 96 other calendars, allowing them to be on what we call OTAs, online travel agencies, across the world. So our goal really is to get that room booked and keep that room filled. We aren't doing the property management side of it. We're maintaining a property. We do offer referrals to housekeeping services and other services that are available in the area, but really on our side of it, it's about getting the bookings. It's about filling that room and then working with the individual owner, if they're going to be slightly hands-on or completely hands-off, to make sure that they have the support in place in order to be able to get the results that they want and we want out of that property.
So then if I want to manage the property, I still have to have someone manage the property for me, correct? I mean, you're doing the bookings, you're doing that. I understand that part of it, but the rest of it, say, especially if I'm not here, I still have to have somebody manage the property, correct?
Correct. And sometimes that's handled through the housekeeping company.
Okay.
So we offer housekeeping companies. Many people still have their own housekeepers, even if it's a house that generally sits empty.
Okay.
They still have somebody who maintains that. Sometimes it's a neighbor. And that creates another opportunity for additional income.
And I would assume employment. I mean, you got there's lots of rooms out there. I mean, that's got to be people doing all sorts of things for these properties too. And if you say it's sat empty, but are now being used.
Well, let's use that example that Daniel just brought up about this house in Ashland that was sitting empty 6 months out of the year. All of a sudden, that house is in use for 6 months. So what are the kinds of people that are going to be employed as a result? We're going to have housekeepers.
Yeah.
We're probably
Groundskeepers.
Groundskeepers. Yeah.
In many places, cooks sometimes. I mean, whatever. I mean, there can be all sorts of different things.
Could certainly be cooks.
Yeah.
And the people coming in to stay in those places, again, every dollar they spend on the accommodation, they're going to spend 4 or 5 in town. So there's this huge ripple effect through the economy of all this money coming in that wouldn't otherwise be coming in.
Yeah, well, you say it's created its own, it's kind of snowball kind of thing, isn't it? It's because we always talk about how beautiful this place is. Remember, Joe, all the years, who many people come in here? We love here. We want to come here because we love Southern Oregon. It's so beautiful, so beautiful.
Everybody moves there.
And now look what's happening. I mean, look at this. We're seeing more and more of it.
The nice thing about this type of accommodation also is these are generally not, one, we don't accept one-night stays. So stays start at 2 days, but the typical stay in season is 4 days. We do get people that stay as long as a week, and so they're getting a number of different experiences while they're here. And like Jeffrey said, spending their money in different areas. Yeah. So they're not just staying. If it is Ashland, which is where the bulk of our business is, they're not just staying in Ashland. They are heading up to Crater Lake, and they're seeing wineries, and they're taking our referrals to go visit Jacksonville and of course Oregon Shakespeare Festival, but Brit and everything else that's available in the area.
How seasonal is this here? I mean, we always talk about being year-round visitors. How seasonal is it right now?
I think Daniel's hoping for a week off. It's just not going to happen.
Sorry. So you
Daniel.
You think it's happening?
It's
year-round kind of thing?
It's already surprising us going into the fall.
Daniel, fall colors are beautiful.
I had a projection of what the fall was going to be, and it's much better than we expected. Again, being on 96 websites and being on websites across the world means that we're bringing in people that aren't coming specifically just for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival.
Okay,
they're coming
sure.
for wineries, they're coming for hiking, they're coming for fishing.
So, out of curiosity, have you advertised the Ashland Halloween Parade? Because that's my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, that's
No,
coming
I
up.
think we might still have some openings.
Well, that's good.
What about skiing? Wintertime, I assume Mount Ashland, when it has the snow, that's
Why not?
Is that a draw too?
We had a phenomenal winter last year, and that was reflected probably more than any other place at the cabins up at Hyatt Lake. And even though that's about a 35, 40-minute drive to get there, people wanted that full experience. There's a great snow park up there. You get to be on the lake, and you can come down, ski during the day, have dinner in Ashland, and then head back up to a cabin.
Yeah, see, and that type of thing is what visitors want, and you say they're coming from all over the world.
Heck with the visitors.
I mean, well, or you get it locally, I suppose, too.
That makes it a pretty great date, doesn't it?
yeah.
Just tell your wife, honey, I'm taking you out for the
Putting it
weekend.
out,
You just go
out there on
local.
all those 96 websites.
We've
got a few left for us.
Last year was a great mix. Again, specific.
Yeah, well, okay. Hold those thoughts. We're coming right back here. We got them set. The Real Estate Show. We're with Daniel Perry. We're talking travelers accommodations. Jeffrey Nagel's in the house as well. Pete and Joe, the real estate guys. We're coming right back. Don't you dare go away to KMED right after this. Real Estate Show continues here on KMED Saturday, October the 7th. Hope you're having a good weekend. Make something happen. Enjoy the time here in the beautiful fall in the Rogue Valley. That's for sure. Pete Belcastro here with you. We're talking travelers accommodations here today with Daniel Perry, the owner of BookAirHop.com, and Jeffrey Nagel, real estate broker, one of my colleagues at John L. Scott in Medford here in Ashland, and how much we've enjoyed listening today to this particular part of the real estate market that it just seems so much potential for a lot of people if you do this right. I mean, you got to do it right. You got to have help. You got to know what the world you're doing, and you can't do it yourself. It's like renting, rentals, as we talked about last week. Why would you want to do it yourself when you got somebody who can actually do it for you and take all that hassle away from you? Anyway, Daniel, one of the things that owners always worry about, is that who's renting my place? They're going to come in and use my house. They're going to wear and tear, whatever, etc. But you have actually ways of you rate these places. I mean, people rate the house that they're staying in or the place they're staying in, and the people who own the place rate the people who are staying there as well, correct?
That's correct. And when we talked about this last time, it seemed to be a fairly new concept for quite a few people.
It was for me.
And it's amazing in such a short period of time how that's changed.
Okay.
Because now we have guests approach us with what their rating is.
Okay.
So almost like they're telling us their credit score, but it's not a credit score.
Okay.
They're letting us know that they've stayed at least 5 places, that they've been that they're 5-star reviewed in all of those places. So they're walking into the conversation saying, "I've already accomplished all of these things, and I'm letting you know I'm at this level." And there are filter products now when they're making these reservations where they can choose to stay at properties that are at an equated level to where they're at.
So a certain star level kind of property
Correct.
only kind of
and
thing.
a certain host level.
And a host level.
So we are considered 5-star super host, which is the highest level that you can be. And if you were to take that big filter unfiltered, there would be about 400 properties here in the Valley. As soon as you click on that and you put it to the very top, the highest mark that you can put it on with the full amount of stars and super host status, it knocks it down to 80 properties. And just about 50 of those 80 properties are our properties because
Wow.
they tie back to us as a company, which is also a big encouragement when a new client comes on board with us because they inherit our rating, which is why we're so particular about the new clients that we bring on.
Yeah, because if someone did something damage or whatever, you can rate them out and they won't get another place again in the future, correct? Kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a good kind of insurance almost for for an owner of a place like that.
And I like to say, and we may not be able to, always position ourselves this way because
Yeah.
things change. But we've had over 3,000 reservations in the last year, and in those 3,000 reservations, we had one incident. It was with my grandparents' cabin. It was small accidental damage to a refrigerator door, and we were able to take care of the situation. So it really shows that the process we have in place of bringing in the right level of guest for that client are people that are going to care about these properties.
Yeah, now I know you're only one person, but when you're full, when you have your places full, and I know you said several times that's happened. How many additional people are staying in the Valley when you're full? I mean, when your rooms are full, your places are full, people there. How many people does that equate into the valley?
Oh, for us and
Yeah.
on our side, about 350 guests.
350.
So I always
That's a
position
lot.
ourselves like a hotel. And if you were to click on and start clicking on various hotels, whether it's in this area or many other areas, it's hard to find a hotel at any level that's rated higher than about a 4.7. At 4.7, that's usually something pretty special. So if you combine all of our properties together, we sit at about a 4.9, 4.95.
And is all this being accepted into the travel industry, Jeffrey? I mean, travelers' accommodations like this, like what Daniel does. Do you think?
It is the change to the industry in the same way that Uber is the change
Yeah.
to the taxi industry.
Yeah.
They've got to adjust. They've got to figure out how to make it work, and it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening. Yeah.
I think that what's interesting is that where you put them. I know people be talking about this when we're off the air about, hey, I've got this, I've got that. So there's potentials. And as you say, that it really depends. Location is really important, right? And the condition of the property. So you're not going to call you saying, I got an empty house here, I want a vacation rental, and it's not going to. So you can fail in this too, I guess is my point, right?
You can, and that's our goal, is to make sure when we're working with a potential new client that we are honest about that property and how it may function and what's realistic, because they'll often come to us because it is usually basically word of mouth.
Okay.
And they'll say, my friend so-and-so, tells me that they're doing this year. Well, that's great, but your property is 17 blocks from that property in a completely different area. Will it do well? It'll do well for where that property is located, but it's not going to do the same as this property.
What would you like to have the most of right now? What do you need the most of, you think, in this particular
We need
thing?
it's a perfect question, because we're just chasing it down all the time. We have such a huge lack of homes. We have many cottages. We have 1-bedroom cottages, 2-bedroom cottages. We have cabins. Those are all wonderful properties. But so many people now are traveling with family, and now extended family. Grandma and grandpa are coming along, and additional kids and the brother and sister, and it's many family reunions. These properties that can hold more than 6.
And where in the valley can I still, if I own property, have just what you're talking about? I know Ashland has restrictions. You said Brookings. Anybody else, or Grants Pass, I believe, is starting that. But other places, I mean, can someone just do this, or tell me what kind of the story is there?
What I tell everyone is eventually everybody will have these restrictions.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I agree.
It's just a matter of timing.
Sure.
And so it's making sure that you get on board and you're doing the things correctly that are going to put you in a position that as those roll over, that you're not going to. We want long-term relationships with our guests. So the last thing we want to do is put them in a position where 6 months from now something's going to change and they're going to get pulled out of that position. We're not going to be able to use that property anymore.
Can they get grandfathered in if they do it now, early, before these restrictions come in?
That's going to be up to the city council.
Up to all of them in each of the jurisdictions. So right now, it's still, as we talked the first time we met you, it's still, you have a lot of flexibility right now outside of those areas that have the restrictions.
And that's why we see
Okay.
such tremendous growth on what I call Ashland adjacent properties.
Outside of the city.
Oh, I'm telling you, talent in Phoenix and heading back towards Jacksonville. That's a gold mine area, especially for homes.
It's
A
beautiful
three-bedroom,
country. For homes.
3-bedroom, 2-bath home in that area. A property that can accommodate, again, more than 6 guests, 8 or even 10. It doesn't get any better.
Those are places. Well, these are options again for sellers, and this is what is so interesting, that what we talk about. How can someone get a hold of you? Because we're going to be out of time here. So if they want to talk to you about this, Daniel, how can someone find you?
Sure, a number of ways. A best way is probably through our toll-free number, and that number is 1-877-411-5545. We also have 2 websites. We have our general website, which is bookairhop.com. And because we've had so much growth up at the cabins up at Hyatt Lake, it has its own separate website now. So
its own thing,
you
yeah.
can choose your particular cabin, and that's Hyatt Lake Cabins with an S. .com.
See, that's how look at that 1 year. Look how much that's grown. So you got boys that we're almost out here, but you don't see this slowing down at all. You see it just continuing to grow because people want to come to our area, don't
This
you?
is going to continue to grow.
And we're expanding to the coast.
And going to the coast, well, our secret's out. They're coming from all over the world, and they're bringing new revenue to us and new opportunities in real estate. So that's the story of vacation rentals here. Thanks to Daniel Perry from bookairhop.com and to Jeffrey Nagle from John L. Scott. I'm Pete. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you next week, and God bless you all. We'll see you next Saturday here on The Real Estate Show.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on KMED Radio, presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, along with John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon and Bank 34 Mortgage. For guest contact information, download our free app, or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshoworegon.com. This show is produced by Table Rock Productions. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only Real Estate Show on KMED. And thank you for making the Real Estate Show part of your weekend.